Monster City Madhouse, a year-round online store full of Halloween and classic horror shirts, with an emphasis on the vintage look. Use code SAVE10 for 10% off your order. MonsterCityMadhouse.com. Free shipping and financing's available. Welcome back to Southern Ghost Stories. I am the American Haunted Historian, Alan Searcy. Glad you guys are with me today. And man, spring is here and there's a lot going on. I've got a lot of appearances, a lot of places I'm going to be. Gallatin, Tennessee, Squarefest, April 25th. Come find me, grab a book. First book I ever did was Coast to Gallatin, and I always enjoy doing the festival there in town. Knoxville, the book festival, May 2nd, May 3rd. That's a really fun show. A lot of great authors. I'll be out there. I'm actually doing a panel on, I think, historic fiction or something. Also, I'm also doing a seminar on how to sell books. So that'd be a lot of fun. Come see me in Knoxville. Portland, Tennessee, Strawberry Festival, May 9th. Louisville HorrorCon, May 16th. That's always a fun time. Jack Osborne, the guy from the spooky shows, and Ozzy Osbourne's son, he's going to be there signing autographs. Whole slew of celebrity guests. Jamie Kennedy. It's a fun show. Spawn a Scare Fest. I'll be in Lexington June 5th, 6th, and 7th. That's also a really big show. Scarefest, they do the show in Lexington every year. Last year, I think they had Robert Englund there signing autographs, but they're doing a second show, kind of similar to what Horror Hound does in Cincinnati. But they'll be in Lexington June 5th, 6th, and 7th. Skeet Ulrich, David Howard Thornton, the guy does Art the Clown from Terrifier, he'll be there signing autographs. So, and lots more dates later this year, especially August, September, and October. But that's just stuff going on in the spring. Pistols at Red River, a new book drops April 30th. I'm excited for that one. So let's get into the show. I was in an event in Kentucky last week, and we were talking about haunted sites. And, you know, I've read a lot of books. I've been to a lot of haunted places. And someone asked me, have you ever been in a home that was evil? So I know there's been some things, Middle Tennessee. There's Oakland's Mansion in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. They say there's a lady who pushes other women down the stairs. There's a place in Brentwood, the Maribels, the old Ward House. I've heard of people being scratched in the cellar. But the most evil place I've ever heard of, you actually can't even go there anymore. It's gone. But today I want to tell you guys about the Demon House in Gary, Indiana. So the house at 2122 Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana, it was never meant to be a monument. It was built in the 1920s as a functional white-sided rental cottage. It served as a mundane shelter for decades of transient tenants. It was just a structure of narrow hallways and a damp, low-ceiling basement sitting on a nondescript patch of Indiana soil. And there was no ancient curse in the house, no blood in its history, until November 2011, when LaToya Ammons moved her mother and her 3 children into the small home. And the descent began with flies. Even as the Indiana winter tightened its grip and got colder, swarms of large black flies clustered against the window screens of the enclosed porch. They died by the hundreds, only to be replaced by hundreds more the following morning. Inside, the atmosphere grew heavy. It's like a physical weight that seemed to settle on the corners of the rooms. The family began to hear the rhythmic thud of footsteps climbing the basement stairs and the scratching of nails against the interior of the closet doors. And by the spring of 2012, the house began to exert a terrifying physical influence over the children. Ammons reported witnessing her 12-year-old daughter levitating above her bed in a trance-like state. And when the family sought help, the haunting transitioned from a private nightmare to an official record. In a moment that would later be immortalized in police and social service files, a Department of Child Services worker and a nurse watched as Ammons' youngest son growled. His eyes rolled back in his head, and he walked backwards up a wall into the ceiling. He moved with a fluid, a natural grace that defied the laws of physics, and he landed back on the floor without making a sound. The Gary Police Department led by a skeptical police chief, descended on the property shortly thereafter. Now, the chief, he was a man used to the grim realities of street crime. He found himself confronted by the inexplicable. His police radio refused to function in the house, and his squad car's power seats and windows began to cycle on their own after he left the driveway. Officers photographing the basement found their digital images corrupted by white, misty silhouettes that weren't visible to the naked eye. Beneath the stairs, in a dirt floor crawl space, they discovered a small shrine consisting of a heavy silver spoon, a bottle of oil, and torn pieces of clothing. It was evidence that someone had previously attempted a ritual to open or close a door somewhere there on the grounds. And as the story broke nationally, the house became a focal point for the religious and the curious. Father Michael Maginot was summoned to perform a series of intense exorcisms. He described the structure not as a simple haunting, but as a portal to something older and more predatory. And during the rites, the air in the small living room dropped 20 degrees in just seconds, and the family would manifest deep, unexplainable scratches across their chest and backs. Terrified, the Ammons family eventually they fled. They left the state and left the cottage behind. Well, as you may have already heard, in 2014, the house was purchased by paranormal investigator Zak Bagans. He's done a lot of TV shows. He's kind of famous. He sought to document the house's energy, but the structure seemed to resist being observed. Production was stalled by freak accidents and sudden violent outbursts among the crew. Bagans himself claimed the house inflicted him with permanent double vision after he spent a night alone in the basement. He realizes that the house was a biological entity of sorts, feeding on the attention that it received. Well, the end came in January 2016. A construction crew arrived not to renovate, but to erase. An excavator's claw tore through the roof, snapping the old timbers in the rafters and collapsed the walls in the basement that had been the source of so much dread. The debris was not recycled or sent to a regular landfill. It was hauled away to a secret location, and it was buried under layers of earth to prevent anyone from keeping a piece of the demon house. The foundation was filled, and the soil was graded flat. Today, 2122 Carolina Street is just a void in the neighborhood. A rectangular patch of grass where the sidewalk just leads to nothing. There's no rubble left, no sign that a house ever stood there. Only a lingering stillness that suggests the earth is keeping a secret it has no intention of sharing. There's some wild stories in Indiana. I'm actually working on a book about Indiana ghost stories and folklore, and I hope to have it out later this year. I started dabbling on it, I guess, in like 2019, 2020. I did a lot of poking around in New Albany, Jeffersonville, kind of like the across the river from Louisville, southern Indiana. But there's just a lot of wild stuff there. Speaking of books, Hexed, my voodoo doctor book from Knoxville. I've talked about in previous shows, but I've had some talks with a film producer about making it into a movie. So we'll see where it goes. The wheels always turn slow when you get Hollywood involved. But yeah, check out Hexed. I've had some important meetings. Kind of excited, but hurry up and wait. We'll see. But yeah, just Google, or you can go to Amazon, type in Hexed, Alan Searcy, and it should pop up. So I've been asking you guys for the past few months, follow me on Southern Ghost Stories on Facebook or Instagram. Also, been trying to get you guys to send me some questions. Did a Q&A, I guess it was last month. And I plan on doing another one here pretty soon. But I got another question, and I thought it was kind of fun. Figured I'd just kind of jump in and do it. James Watson asked if I've ever been freaked out by anything during an investigation. Well, I guess I've got to tell you guys, I don't do as much investigating as I used to. But, for a while, I was running hot and heavy all over the country. But a few years ago, when I was working on Southern Ghost Stories, Florida, I was working on this book about ghost stories from Key West to Pensacola, everywhere else in between, a lot of St. Augustine stuff. So when I was wrapping the book up, I went to Pensacola. And And the story there is the Pensacola Lighthouse. There's a room inside the keeper's house where there's blood by the fireplace. And the story goes someone died in the room, and the paranormal activity kind of centers around that room, that fireplace. So typically when you go into a haunted site or to a historic site, you'll find when you walk through the halls, there's these little gates, almost like a baby gate, like there's like a gate, and it keeps people from going into the house and kind of wandering around, touching old stuff. Well, that day when I walked around the lighthouse, I walked into the keeper's room, to the keeper's house, into that room where the blood is on the floor. And when I walked up to the doorway, the gate was ajar, like it was open like a foot or so. So, why not? I ducked in, went around the gate, walked over to the fireplace, took a picture. I walked back. I went back into the hallway. I pulled up my phone to make sure I got the image I wanted to capture. And as I'm looking at my phone at the picture of the blood in the by the fireplace, that gate that was open suddenly slammed shut. So I kind of took that as like, all right, big boy, you shouldn't be back here. Get out. So that's what I did. I didn't take any more pictures. I didn't linger. I think I went back to the lighthouse and walked back up and saw the view one more time, which was amazing, by the way. I mean, lighthouses are incredible. If you guys are on vacation, there's a lighthouse you can tour. I know New Jersey's got a bunch of them, Pensacola. They're all over the country, Maine. Go visit a lighthouse. Anyway, but as far as being creeped out in an investigation, it wasn't really an investigation. I was more doing research for the book, getting pictures and talking to the staff. But that's probably the only time I've really been freaked out. And I've had some really weird things happen to me over the years, as I've told you guys on the podcast before. So, and also check out Southern Ghost Stories Florida. There's some wild stories. Like I mentioned, from Key West to Pensacola, a lot of St. Augustine stuff. And if I tell you something else while I'm thinking about just weird stuff. So, it's probably even stranger than the lighthouse in Pensacola. So, St. Augustine, you guys know, it's the oldest city in the country, and the old jail there, you can tour it. It's like it's a tourist site. You can have paranormal investigations. They do tours at night after dark. So when I was working on the books back in 2019, when I first started the book, I went to the jail, and I bought my ticket to do the tour. I wanted to kind of talk to staff members and get some pictures. So I paid for my ticket. I walk over where the tour is going to start, and I pull up my ticket, and I realize he's charged me twice. And it was just me. My wife is back at the hotel with my little boy. So I go back to the ticket office and say, hey, you guys have overcharged me. It's just me. How can I get a refund for the other ticket? So the guy said, hey, man, I'm really sorry, but we just closed for the day. Ticket office is now closed. Can you take this number down, call us tomorrow? I'll be happy to give you a refund for the ticket. Sure, no problem. So I got out my iPhone into the notepad, and I made a note. Wrote down the jail, wrote down the phone number they gave me. And as I'm writing the number down, this guy where the tour begins, at the front of the jail, hey, man, come on, we're about to start. So I rush over there. I had my phone out still. He gives me the tour of the jail, walk around. He answers all my questions. Well, I get done with the tour, and I go back outside. I'm thinking, hey, I got to make sure I got that number from where they overcharged me. I have to call them tomorrow to get my refund. I pull out my phone, and my notepad is still up. It's kind of strange. I start looking at it, and underneath that phone number are a bunch of poorly misspelled cuss words. So, like, whatever was there, just didn't want me there. And you got to think, back in, early 20th century, late 19th century, those people who were incarcerated probably weren't very educated. So maybe they didn't know how to spell those curse words. They were trying to, tell me to get their point across that I needed to leave. So that's something else that's kind of wild and weird that happened to me. Florida is a weird state, a lot of weird history. Check out Southern Ghost Stories, Florida, a lot of stuff in there. Also, talking about books, I told you guys, I've been mentioning it for a while. Pistols at Red River drops April 30th, and I'm really excited about that one. Everyone loves a good dueling story. I mean, dudes dressing up in suits and going out in the field and shooting each other. That's always a good time. But anyway, it's based on the story of Andrew Jackson. He's married to a married woman. The guy, he was married to a married woman, and he was the butt of every joke in every saloon. And, Andrew Jackson, you guys know, had a fiery temper, and he decided he had enough, and he called the guy out. They went to the Kentucky line, and they decided to hash it out like men with pistols, as one should when someone defames your wife. But anyway, it's not really a ghost story, but it's wild history. And that's kind of, my lane. I love just weird, wild stuff. And there's 2 duels in the book. So, yeah, April 30th, Pistols Red River finally drops, and I'm really excited. So, anyway, make sure you subscribe. Leave a review over Apple Podcast or Spotify, and those are really helpful. It helps us in the algorithm, the ratings, and all that good stuff. And be sure you send me some questions on Facebook and on Instagram. Plan on doing another Q&A here probably pretty soon. And there's some things going on behind the scenes I'm really excited about. And yeah, but I'll see you guys next week. And yeah, take care, guys. Check out the exclusive shirts from Monster City Madhouse, Gravestone, Rocktober, and Val Halloween. All that and much more at MonsterCityMadhouse.com.